welcome to CivilNet. Today I am happy to be doing a happy interview, at the very least an optimistic interview. Haven't done one of those in a while. My guest is David Morrison, who heads the Caucasus Nature Fund, which is an organization founded for the purpose of supporting nature areas, protected nature areas throughout the Caucasus. We're going to be talking about the term the Caucasus to begin with, and then we'll talk about nature, and then we'll talk about fund. I want to say that David Morrison comes to this kind of circuitously. He's an attorney, financial attorney, and left the United States to live in Paris and to head the Caucasus Nature Fund. The Caucasus, you know, we don't talk to each other, and sometimes we don't even like each other. So how do you manage to deal with this not recognizing any borders sort of issue in a region where borders are everything?
From a conservation point of view, if you conserve in each country well, you're actually conserving the region. That doesn't mean that cooperation between the countries wouldn't help, and more cooperation would be desirable. There is cooperation between Georgia and Armenia occurring on the border with the new national park Lake Arpi in Armenia and the Javaheti region in Georgia, which is also establishing a national park. It will be the region's first transboundary national park.
This is imminent?
It's happening, yes.
Is there Georgia-Azerbaijan cooperation?
Not as advanced as the cooperation between Armenia and Georgia, but there's the beginning of some cooperation between Georgia and Azerbaijan as well.
And the work of the Caucasus Nature Fund is basically to focus on areas that are already denoted as protected, which means you're working with governments or you're working with the environmental activists?
We're working with actually the governments or our partners. We're in effect a public-private partnership. The background is that NGO community, as it discovered the fantastic nature and the natural asset that you have here in the Caucasus, which is world-class. Caucasus nature is recognized by international scientists as one of the richest in the world. The richest in a temperate climate zone, acre for acre. There's more life here in the Caucasus than in any temperate climate zone in the world. So with that background,
that's amazing, and we just don't understand
people
that.
People don't understand that,
and
it's a fantastic story. You have world-class nature in this country. What do you do when you want to try to preserve that, not just for Armenians, but for the world? You invest in setting aside places where nature is allowed to take its course. That doesn't mean we have to restrict all of Armenia from development. That's not the goal of conservation. Conservation is intelligent development, development that takes account of the needs of the planet's other inhabitants.
And long-term needs.
Long-term needs. So you have some protected areas, some national parks in this country, but the problem, as with many other issues as Armenia develops, is that there's not enough funding. The parks probably have less than half of what they need to actually run themselves properly.
What is our government budget for parks?
The Ministry of Nature Protection spends about €1 million a year, roundabout, on national parks.
And so if they had €2 million, they'd be set?
If they had €2 million, they would really be very close to being able to run a first-class national park system.
Is the vision right? In your experience, is the understanding of the task right, if we put the infrastructure and the resources aside for a moment? And is there in Georgia and is there in Azerbaijan?
I think the answer is yes in both countries, although I think the vision is slightly different. I think the Georgians are perhaps most advanced of the three countries in terms of recognizing the tourist and the development potential of their nature. I think that could be more emphasized in this country. And I think the Azeris are probably the furthest behind in recognizing the actual tourist potential and development potential of their nature.
the fund part of what you do, does it mean finding and offering funds through your organization, or does it also mean encouraging public-private partnership on the ground here?
We don't claim to be the exclusive partner of anyone, and there are lots of others who are trying to help in the nature protection arena in this country. But very few get down to the nitty-gritty of saying, how do you pay a light bill, an electricity bill? How do you buy a light bulb for the national park? Are we willing to pay for a pair of binoculars? Are we willing to help pay the ranger a living wage in the park? Most of the organizations you talk to want to do infrastructure development, want to help with technical advice, and say, we can't actually provide funding for running the place properly, which is where our organization makes a difference.
So how do you leverage your support? How do you leverage the funding support that you offer?
Well, the first leverage is that we require, we won't spend any more in one of your parks than the government does. And we also require the government to maintain its funding in the parks that we support, so that we're not here to allow the government to say, there's some new source of funding, we can reduce our support for the park. We're trying to say, no, you're not spending enough, but keep doing what you're doing. We understand you have other priorities. Keep doing what you're doing, increase it on an inflation-adjusted basis, and we'll come in and add to that.
So finally, very specifically, which nature preserves, which areas do you specifically work in, and what kind of money is it that this would take to do? What do you contribute? What does your organization contribute, and what can others do?
We started in Khosrow Forest in 2010. Last year we expanded the program to cover not only Khosrow, but also Shikoho and Aravik National Park. Next year we're supporting the government also and preparing a plan so that Dilijan can become part of our portfolio, and there's a funding shortfall in Arpi Lake, and we're helping the government with some emergency funding to keep the heat on this winter there. So we'll be supporting 5 parks this year, is the answer to your question, in 2012 with about 250,000 euros. So adding a significant amount to the government budget for this area. Our goal would be over the next couple of years to ramp that up to about 600,000 euros, around about $800,000 a year on a recurring basis in support of this fantastic stuff you've got out there. The leopards and the bears and the wolves and the things that Europeans can only distantly remember you still have here, and you shouldn't lose them. They're a great part of your heritage.
We're glad that you are doing what you're doing with the government and leveraging to the extent possible so that they in fact do have the resources to do good when it can be done. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My guest was David Morrison of the Caucasus Nature Fund.